Assalamu alaikum, Rabbi. This is Afroz. How are you? One quick question I have is this. When Musa alayhi salam met the Almighty, he asked him his name, thinking that when he goes back to his people, they would ask him whom he met and what was his name. So my question is, why would they need to know the name of God? During the slavery, did they forget who their Lord was? Did they forget who was the God of Abraham alayhi salam? Thank you very much, Rabbi. Thank you.
Thank you. That's good. You know, the name thing comes up so many times in so many different contexts and settings. You could probably do 15, 20 shows just on that. So, all right, take it away, Rabbi.
It's a very question that I receive very frequently. The Torah tells us in Exodus chapter 3, when Hashem, the Almighty, appeared to Moses at the mountain of God. Hashem appeared to Moses at Mount Sinai, although the Torah had not yet been given. So Moses is very reluctant to carry out this mission, not because he's unfaithful, but he feels unworthy. We are later told that there was no person in history who was as humble as Moses. No one. Hashem promises Moshe Rubino, he says, Vayomer, Ki eheyimach, I will be with you. In the next passage, after God promises Moses that he will be with him, Moses turns to God and asks a question which it's hard to understand the question at first glance. Vayomer Moshe el Elokim, and Moses said to God, Hini anochi vo el Bnei Israel, so I'm going to come to the children of Israel, va'amarti lohem, and I'm going to say to them, Elokei avosechem shelochani aleichem, and the God of your forefathers has sent me to you. Va'amruli, and they're going to say to him, Ma shemo, mo omar lo lehem. They're going to ask me, what is his name? What should I tell them? This is a very difficult passage to understand. Here the children of Israel have been in Egypt for hundreds of years. They've been enslaved. Very, very difficult situation. And when Moshe of blessed Moses, our teacher of blessed memory, is standing with God having a conversation, his concern is that he's going to come to the children of Israel and he's going to be told that I was sent by the God of your forefathers to bring you out of this land. They're going to ask me, of all things, what is his name? First of all, is that really the kind of question that the children of Israel, if you were enslaved in Egypt and your father and grandfather were enslaved in Egypt, and here comes a person as a deliverer, is that really the question? Will go, well, what is his name? First of all, why wouldn't they know his name? How does that make sense? I mean, wouldn't there were holy people among them? How would they not know what his name is? And why do they care what his name? I mean, what is his name? They would ordinarily ask questions like, when is it going to happen? Can we trust? How do we know that you're speaking on his behalf? They would ask a lot of questions, but what is his name? Why is the name so important here? Moreover, as it turns out, Hashem doesn't even tell them. The answer that Moses is given in chapter 3 of verse 14, God replies, Vayomer Elokim al Moshe. It is a very bizarre answer. Agia asher Agia, which means, I will be that I will be. Now, this often is translated as I am who I am, but in reality, that is not the correct translation. Agia means I will be, implying I will be with you. And in fact, it continues, Vayomer koi soimer livnei Yisrael, this is how you should speak to the children of Israel, Agia shelachani aleichem, that Agia, I will be, has sent me to be with you. This is very strange. What kind of I will be who I will be? In the Christian translations, I am who I am. Imagine someone says, what's your name? I say, I am who I am. Well, that's the biggest non-name in the world. As it turns out, if you look in Tanakh, you'll see that God is not called this name. That means, why, if that is in fact the name of God, if we are to take this text and read it in the most, as a prosaic text, that it should be understood conventionally, none of this makes sense. What kind of name is that? Why would they be interested in the name? Why is this important? And why, if that is in fact the most important name of God, why doesn't it say later on somewhere, Vayomer Agia el Moshe, and Agia said to Moses? We don't find that. We have all the other names of Hashem, but not that one. If that really is his name, or is there something deeper going on? This is very powerful. I'll show you something else that's very interesting, is what does this name mean and why are names so important? And I want to illustrate to you that throughout the Torah, we find that names have a deeper meaning than how we conventionally speak about what's your name. Oh, my name is Bruce. Oh, how do you do? My name is Stacy. Oh, how do you do? My name is Freddie. It doesn't mean that. It means something else. I'll explain. You know, in Genesis chapter 32, when right before Jacob is going to encounter Esau, so he meets an angel of Esau, he meets an angel, and he struggles him fights with him until the morning. And finally, Jacob prevails over this angel, and the angel says, let me go, I have to go. And Jacob says, wait, before I let you go, tell me what your name is. What does that mean? Like, what does it mean? Is your name Johnny? Like, what is he asking him? The angel doesn't tell him, refuses to give that information, but instead says to him that, in fact, that your name will not be called Jacob, but Kiyim Yisrael will be called Israel. Jacob, from now on, your name is going to be called Israel. You hear this? As it turns out, if you keep reading the Torah, you'll see that Jacob is called Jacob after this event. Now, he's also called Yisrael, and his progeny, the children of Israel, the Bnei Yisrael, are called Israel. But what does this mean? What does this name talk? What I want to present to you, and we can do this for hours, is that in the Torah, when someone says, this is my name, or what is your name, it doesn't mean what we conventionally understand to mean as a name. What is Moses going? What is your name? Your name is Fred. Your name is Danny. What is this name? And names are very, very important. You could see the way people are named in the Torah, that every name has enormous meaning. What does this mean? And Agia, as it turns out, doesn't mean I am. How do you know what I'm telling you is correct? Because dial it back for a moment to Genesis chapter 3. Moses is now given the task of standing for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. This is not an easy task. And Hashem promises him something. Take a look at, again, Exodus chapter 3, verse 12. Vayomer ki ehi imach, I will be with you. Wow. The word ehi imach, will be with you, is exactly the same word, Agia, that God's name is, we are given in Exodus chapter 3, verse 14. It's the same word. So we know there it means will be. That means, and what is the context? That I will be with you. In fact, later on we'll find in the Torah that God says that after Moses is is passing away, and Joshua is taking over Moses' role, and he is going to lead the children of Israel across the Jordan, opposite Jericho, and lead them into the land of Canaan. So God says that I will be with you as I was with Moses, I will be with Joshua. This is an amazing thing. It's the same word, Agia. I'll make the question even stronger, because I receive this question very frequently. In Genesis chapter 6, we encounter, I think, one of the most difficult passages in the Torah to understand. Very famous. It's Exodus chapter 6. And the Almighty is here promising Moses that there will be great miracles as I take the children of Israel out of this land, and finally they will be brought to the promised land. Hashem is going to use Moses as an instrument to bring this about. In verse 2 and 3, we have a very, very strange text. Vayidaber Elikim el Moshe, and God said to Moses, Vayomer lev ani Hashem. And he said to Moses, I am Hashem. Now, this word is not Agia, because I told you the word Agia is not used for God in the Torah as a proper name, as a name of God. Watch this. The name there, Hashem, is literally the ineffable name of God. Yud, then a Hey, then a Vav and a Hey, which a religious Jew never says. It's only said on Yom Kippur by the high priest. It's never said. Very careful. The name conveys that God is eternal. It's a compression of was, is, and will be. It's beyond the comprehension. We don't say it. Other names of God we will say during prayer, or when it's very, very important. I'll do it now for you. Now, here is the next passage, chapter 6, verse 3, which is very, very difficult to understand at first glance. And God then recounts and says, he continues to speak, Va'era el Avram, el Yitzchak ve'el Yaakov, and I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, El-Shadai, as El-Shadai. Ushemi Hashem, but the name Yud, Hey, then Vav, and then a Hey, Lo yadati lehem, I was not known to them. Well, what is this passage speaking about? First of all, if you look in the book of Genesis, you will find that this name Yud, Hey, then Vav, and then a Hey, this ineffable name of God, appears all over Genesis, in conjunction with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. What do you mean they didn't know that name? But they did know El-Shadai. Where did they know El-Shadai from? What is it talking about? I knew me as this, but he didn't know me as that. What does this all mean? What is being conveyed here? As it turns out, Abraham didn't know Hashem's name? It's in the Torah. What do you mean he didn't know? And what does it mean he knew El-Shadai, but he didn't know the other name of God, the ineffable name of God? And what does it mean that you're going to know the name? What does that mean? And then it continues in verse 4, V'gam haki Moses brisi itam laseslem et eretz Canaan, and I will therefore establish my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan. It's eretz megurehem asher garu bam, from the land that they dwelled in. What does that mean? What's going on here? I know by one name, not the other name. Agia, that's all you should say. The Agia sent them. As it turns out, we never find Moses saying, Agia sent me. Why isn't it there? Why is this so important? How could Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob not know this name? What didn't they know? And what did they know? Why is Jacob asking the angel, what's your name? And why doesn't the angel reveal it? And then why is Jacob called Israel, which essentially means to struggle with God? And in fact, in the Torah, Jacob is still called Jacob. The text says he will no longer be Jacob, but he'll be called Israel. What is all was going on? It's very clear that these passages must have a meaning that is not obviously apparent, and using conventional ways of speaking, these texts would make no sense at all. So we'll go down to what's happening here. As it turns out, when a name here in this sense means what is your message? What is your role? What are you going to accomplish? A name, when Jacob is asking the angel who he's fighting with, what is your name? He's asking, what is your message? What is your job? What are you going to do? What were you sent here for? Why am I struggling with you? What is going on here? What is happening here? Now, we will find out in a moment what is happening here, because immediately, the very next chapter, in Genesis chapter 33, what do we see? That in fact, Jacob has to now contend with Esau, and throughout Jewish history, the Jewish people have to contend with the descendants of Esau, whom we are still struggling with today. The Jewish people always will have to contend with this. It's never going to be smooth sailing. I remember I was in the Bahamas, and I was scuba diving there. And I remember I was walking down a road, and I'm just going to myself, this country doesn't have a problem in the world. They don't go to war with anyone. No one's going to war with them. They have, I don't know what kind of problems they have, but no one's bothering with them. No one cares about them. No one's interested in them. They're always fighting with them. No one cares. No one this, that. All they care is they have a nice beach, and that's close enough. That's it. But as it turns out, the Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, are constantly struggling for their existence. Constantly. What is also conveyed by the message of God? What is conveyed by the name El-Shadai? So the name El, which is one of the names of Hashem, means power. El means power. In fact, we find in religions which are Semitic, El is the name that's used for God, whether it's the true God or false gods. Now, what does Shaddai mean? What kind of name is Shaddai? So the name Shaddai is Sha'omer Dai Olamai, which means that God said, since Dai means enough. It's a compression of two words, Sha'omer Dai, that God said enough. Now you're going, well, what does that mean? What do you mean enough? What kind of name is that to call God? Hello, your God created the universe and your name is enough. And this is the name that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob knew about, but they didn't know the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. What does that all mean? I'll ask another question. After the world is created, in Genesis chapter 2, the text, the Torah, goes back and breaks down the creation of men with greater detail. And the chapter, in fact, opens with that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the seventh day holy, set it aside, because God ceased to create on that day, and he rested on that day, and God made this day holy. Now, there was not yet a nation to observe the Sabbath, but later on in the Ten Commandments, the children of Israel are told that they must observe the Shabbos. It must be holy to them. Exodus chapter 31, verse 13, 14, 15. It's an eternal covenant between God and the children of Israel. You must not do any work on the Sabbath day. It's a holy day for you. Why? Because God rested on that day. Which raises another obvious question is, why would God create the heavens and the earth? Why would he ever rest? Was God tired after 6 days of creating the universe? He was so exhausted, chas v'shalom, that God goes, I just need a vacation. Some people, lahavdil, they work really hard on the project, and when they finish the project, honey, we deserve a vacation. Does Hashem need a vacation? Does the Almighty need to rest? Which that's impossible. Number two is, just suspend that question for a moment, why would we, if we are celebrating that God is the creator of the heavens and the earth, why would we celebrate the day that God didn't do a thing? Why would we ever consider the day that God rested to be holy? If we are in fact celebrating and recognizing that Hashem is the creator, we should be celebrating the 6 days. The seventh day should be the day that we could work. It's the 6 days as he was doing everything. Think about this for a moment. Why is Shabbos holy? Why is the Sabbath holy? Why is the seventh day a holy day? Because God rested? Why would God rest? But setting that aside, let's suspend that for a moment. Why would we celebrate a day when God didn't do a thing? And it says openly in Torah, God ceased from all the work that he had done. Then what are we celebrating? How does that in any way celebrate that God is the creator? It's the only day of the first 7 days that God didn't do a thing. We should really be celebrating the first 6 days. The first 6 days he's creating the heavens and the earth, and it continues on, and he goes on, he separates the land from the water, and he creates the celestial bodies on the fourth day, the fish, that he goes on to create the animals. He finally culminates with mankind. These are very creative days. This is where Hashem's glory is being manifest everywhere. On the seventh day, he didn't do a thing. Why is Shabbos why would that be a holy day? That should be the day we can work on. It should be a work. Basically, the week should look like this. For 6 days, you shall celebrate. It should be holy. It should be a special festival. On the seventh day, do whatever you want. Then you can just go on vacation. Why? Because God went on vacation. But you're not allowed to do any work on this. It doesn't make any sense. I want to assemble this all and then make a little bit of sense out of this. As it turns out, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu was creating the world, what he was doing is he was hiding himself behind creation. It wasn't that long ago that people believed that the world was in fact eternal. God was hiding himself behind everything that he created. In order to understand where there's God behind everything, you could ask, well, why does it rain? Well, the water evaporates from the seas, and then it goes up into the sky in the form of a cloud. How does that happen? And then why does the cloud move? Well, there's wind that blows it over land. It's no use if a cloud releases its water over the oceans. What use is it? For it to rain over the oceans doesn't accomplish very much, but you need a wind to come. It's like a vehicle that transports the cloud over land where it's very much needed, and then it releases its water. What causes why should there ever be wind? Why should there be wind? Well, it turns out that warm air is lighter than cold air, and therefore creates a convection, which creates the winds that blow the clouds. This is an amazing system. But you can think this is a fantastic system. It sort of just runs on its own. That means as Hashem is creating everything, he's actually hiding behind his creation. That's why sometimes you find that some of the people who deny God are big scientists, because they see how one thing goes to the other thing, goes to the other thing, and maybe there is no God. Maybe we can penetrate all of physics. We can see that really it's even possible. Stephen Hawking, who died recently, said, it's even possible to explain away the world without a God in it. Why is it? Because God is hiding behind creation. And therefore, God is saying, look, I create and I create and create. But as God is creating, he's hiding, meaning a person now is not seeing God directly face to face, but he's seeing the manifestations of God, what God created. He can either attribute those things to simply, there's winds coming along, there's convection going along, we're very strong and very mighty, it just happens to release this water, and if the clouds released all their water at once, it fell like a pail of water, we'd all drown. It falls in perfect droplets. Why does it fall like this? So as it turns out, creation, what we observe, can go either way. Either we could see creation and see God through it and say, there's a creator behind it. There's a Bayer Yisparach, there's the creator, may he be blessed, that is hiding behind everything, and he's in control of everything. Or we can ignore it and say, no, the reason for our blood, the reason for everything that goes for us, and the reason why everything happens, and there's a gravity, is an anti-gravity. And so, no, this is just pure physics and math, and there's nothing to do with God. Prove to me, show me there's a God. You hear it ad nauseum. Now, as it turns out, God, as he's creating, is hiding behind creation. If God had created for another moment, had he continued the creation process 1 second beyond what he did, he would in fact be so hidden, there would be such a mask that it would be impossible to find him. Hashem stopped creating exactly at that perfect moment So that now it's either way. You could either see God through creation or you could deny God through creation. And that's exactly what we observe today. We see today many, many scientists, very smart, and they totally don't believe in God. Not only don't believe in God, but they don't want you to believe in God. And people have wondered, how could such smart people who write books, their whole life is dedicated to proving that there is no God? Brightest people around, a professor from Oxford University, a neuroscientist from the left coast of the United States. They write books, and they're obviously extremely intelligent. They're very knowledgeable about the world sciences, and they say there is no God. And yet this people who are just as smart, who study the sciences, conclude there is a God. How could two people, very intelligent, observe the same phenomena and draw two completely different conclusions? In the ancient world, before they knew about carbon and so on, people thought there were many gods. They attributed, there was one God that controlled the sun, there's another God over the water, another God over whether you can have babies or not, and so on, because they didn't understand that everything's carbon. They couldn't understand that everything comes from one. So as it turns out, the Almighty came to an exact point where he said, stop, enough, no more creation. At this exact juncture, if we stop creating, which he orders the world to stop, he said enough. What he was saying is the world is exactly in the perfect place where people could discover and get to know me through my creation. But if I continue creating, no one would find me. And now we can understand why this El-Shadai is known to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, meaning what exactly did they know about Hashem? And that is, he's the creator of the heaven and the earth. How did they discover him? Because they realized that he's the one behind creation. How is that made possible? Because God said enough. And that's what they knew. They knew God in that he's the creator of the heavens and the earth. They knew that behind all the forces they were observing, whether it was the wind, whether it was the rain, fire, and so on, the ancients thought there were many, many gods. The Jews were completely, when I say the Jews, I mean the progenitor of the children of Israel, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, were alone in the world. In fact, Abraham is called Ivri. What does this mean, Ivri? He was the world, it means on the other side. The world was on one side, and Abraham was on the other side. And that's why we celebrate Shabbos. Shabbos means that we're able to say, I see you, God. I found you, and I love you, and you're the creator, you're the Zisa Bashefer, you're the sweet creator, and you're not just the God of creation, but you're also the God of history. You're the God who took us out of slavery, out of Egypt. You're always interacting in our lives. You didn't just start the world, as a deist would say, but you actually are constantly involved in our lives. That's why we have those two explanations for Shabbos in the Ten Commandments in Exodus and Deuteronomy. So Shabbos is celebrated like a marriage, in that what we're doing by observing the Shabbos is we're saying, I found you, Hashem. There you are. I know you're hiding behind creation, but I discovered you. And we spend the whole Sabbath in love, in the love embrace with Hashem. Now, how do you love Hashem? What's the right way to love Hashem? So you look all over the world, people have all kinds of ways that they express their love for the divine, all kinds of ways that they experience the numinous. The Torah is an instruction booklet for mankind of how to channel that love. What does it mean you're supposed to celebrate the Shabbos? What does it mean that you're supposed to make a day holy? What should we do? Dance around? What exactly do you do? How do you express your love for Hashem? How do you say to God, I love you? So we don't go and try to figure it out on our own. We look at the Holy Torah, and the Torah tells exactly what on Shabbos we do. That we emulate Hashem because we are filled with Hashem. Kadoshim k'tiyu ki kadosh ani Hashem l'kecha. You are holy because I, the Lord your God, am holy. And therefore, just as Hashem ceased to do work on the seventh day, at the end of the sixth day, therefore, we emulate Hashem and we also cease to do any work. And by ceasing to do work, we say, I recognize that there's one HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is one God, is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob knew. They experienced that. What Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did not experience was they never bore witness. They never saw the fulfillment of the promise that they were given. They were told, Avraham Avinu was told in the Torah, that one day your children would be slaves in Egypt, and I'll redeem them, and I'll bring them out, right? Now, did Abraham believe God? Of course he did. Abraham believed him, but he never witnessed it. He died long before this event ever occurred. That means Abraham did not know. He just trusted in Hashem, as we see in Genesis chapter 15, that he trusted that everything that God told him was true, but he didn't know. Now, in order to know, you have to see it, or you have to have the quality of God, which no one can but God. What is that name again that the children of Israel, that Moses would know, but Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob didn't know? It's the name that conveys was, haya, haiva, v'yiyah in Hebrew. The name of Hashem that we don't ordinarily pronounce, ever, in prayer. Only on one occasion it's ever said. But a Jew never, ever says this out of his mouth. And one of the 10 commandments, never to take this name in vain. Be very, very careful with this name. As it turns out, the children of Israel are actually going to bear witness to what Abraham had to take on faith. So Abraham knew El-Shadai, meaning he knew the God of enough, meaning who's the creator of the heavens and the earth. But he never bore witness. He never saw the Exodus. He never saw the fulfillment of the promise. He took it on faith. But as it turns out, the children of Israel, they are going to witness the full fulfillment of the message. And that's what the name is. The name is the message. And therefore, they are going to know the actual Yud Kei Vav Kei. They're going to witness it for themselves. They're going to see the fulfillment that was told to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. When Moses instructed to tell the children of Israel that Agia means, what does that word mean? We know already what that word means. You can look up that word Agia, all of Tanakh. It always means to be with you. Agia, to be with. It does not mean I am that I am. That's Christian stuff. That's John 8. Forget all that. It doesn't mean that. How do you know I'm telling you the truth? Because all you do is search out that word. You'll never see that people are calling, this is not the name that's used in Tanakh, but that word does say that I will be with. And all you need to do is turn back just a few verses earlier to Exodus chapter 3, verse 12, where it says, Vayomer ki ehyeh imach. God is speaking to Moses here, and he said, I will be with you. I will be. That's what the word means. We see it. What is the word in a King James Bible? I don't want to get involved with the Christian stuff, but why does the King James Bible, I'm not looking at it now, but I guarantee you in Exodus 3, verse 12, it's I will be, and then if you go to Exodus 3, verse 14, it's I am that I am. How did it go from a will be to I am? The answer is that it's a Christological translation. So now we understand that the text is very deep, is very delicious, but you have to understand what's really going on here. You have to see behind the curtain. This is what Hashem wants. Hashem wants us to discover him. When Jacob is asking the angel, what is your name? He's not asking him, is your name Bruce or William or John or Chaim? That's not what he's asking him. He's saying, what is your message? That means, why were you sent? What is your purpose? What are you doing? That's what the name reveals. What is your role? You're a messenger. What is your job? What is going on here? Reveal the plan. Can't know. But Jacob could know what his job is going to be. His job is going to be always to be struggling. And in fact, we see the very next chapter, we go to Genesis chapter 33, we immediately see that right away it unfolds. Right away Jacob has big problem. And this is going to be the destiny of not just Jacob, it's not just Yaakov Avinu who's going to be the one who's in a terrible situation, where Esau, his brother, is coming now with hundreds of hundreds of soldiers after him. We know now that the children of Israel are going to have to contend every step of the way. It's never a smooth one. We're not the Canadians. The Canadians gained their independence by negotiating it, not the Jews. The children of Israel always are going to have to struggle. And this is the nature of the Jew. So what is being revealed in Genesis is really the DNA of Jewish history. What is being revealed in Exodus chapter 6 is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is revealing something very intimate. And that is that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob knew with knowledge, not on faith, knew El-Shadai. I would encourage you not to use those terms normally. I'm doing it to teach and to ensure that people don't make a mistake here. That means they knew the God who's powerful, but that power is, we can see it because he said enough. But Yud Kei Vav Kei, the God of all eternity, who Shochenad, Isaiah 57, that God, that they never got to see. They trusted Hashem, but they never got to witness it. Now we can make all sense out of all this. And therefore, what's going on in Exodus chapter 3 is that the children of Israel are being called a name. It doesn't mean a name in a conventional sense. What it means is, what is he going to do? And what Hashem is reassuring them by saying, Asher is, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to be. I'm going to stay with you. It doesn't look good. I know things look dark. I know like it appears as there is no hope. How could the covenant possibly continue? How will we ever survive this situation? Disaster seems imminent. On every turn, it seems like we're coming to an end. At every juncture in Jewish history, if you study Jewish history, you have to ask yourself the question, how did we survive? It's interesting that if you're a student of history, you have to ask yourself, which is frequently asked, is the Babylonian Empire. They were so great and mighty. How did they disappear? In a blink of an eye, Keharif Ayin, the Babylonian Empire, just was gone and the Persian Empire emerged. Such a mighty empire, the empire of Cyrus the Great, he was so powerful. He controlled such vast lands with such great power. It would go on forever. And then in the blink of an eye, it was gone, and we had the emergence of the Greek Empire. Alexander the Great, so powerful. What land didn't know about Alexander the Great? And in the blink of an eye, he died young, and then his kingdom was divided among four, and eventually along would come Rome. Rome was so great, so powerful. They defeat all their enemies, and they had plenty of enemies. They had the Persian Empire, the Sasanian Empire to deal with. The powerful for centuries and centuries and centuries. Who would ever dream that Rome could just fall in a moment? But they don't have a covenant from Hashem. And in the 5th century, Rome was destroyed by the barbarians. Rome was destroyed by the Visigoths. In the blink of an eye, they just fell. How could it be? How is it possible? With the Jews, the opposite is asked. How did they ever survive? How did we ever survive this event? How do we ever survive this? Look at the situation today. How would the Jews ever survive? Every day, the children of Israel are being cursed by the nations of the world. Yet HaKadosh Baruch Hu kept his promise. And despite the fact that all the nations of the world seek to destroy us, I am going to be with you. Not only during the time of the Exodus, but a second time, I'm always going to be with you. And that's how you'll know me, by what I do. Not by some name. My name is Danny, my name is Bruce, my name is Sheila. No. You will know me because you will see a manifestation of my promises. And now we're just waiting for the final promise, in that now we're waiting for the promise that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told us through his prophets of blessed memory, that in fact that the time will come when all the nations will speak in a pure speech, Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 9. And please God, we will see the coming of the true Mashiach, b'meher b'yameinu, quickly in our time. Thank you for that question.
Adon olam, asher malach, b'terem kol yetzir nivra, let nasa, b'chefetzo kol, אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא עובד